unfortunately, we send those people lots of money, and what are they doing to us? How dare they? How dare they? This is not their land. This is our land. This is native land. This is Seminole, Miccosukee, and indigenous people who are working, who are living our lives here.
The goal is terror. The goal is for us to suffer the most.
Hey, it's Jordan with Status Coup.
This is Ashley with Status Coup.
On the ground.
In Philadelphia.
Flint, Michigan. East Palestine, Ohio. Please support the leading independent news outlet on the ground,
covering what the corporate media covers up. So I am here with Lupita and Dakota, who are local activists. We are right by the, what people are calling Alligator Alcatraz, the new detention center in Florida that's being set up as we speak. That should, be operational tomorrow, right in the middle of the Everglades. So again, we are here. There was a protest here earlier today that unfortunately we missed, but we were talking to everybody after the protest. So Lupita, we'll start with you. Why did you show up today for this protest? You have been, I assume, active in organizing this. Why have you been a part of this?
So I've been called to respond as a volunteer with Unidos Immokalee, which is really just a people movement of grassroots people movement responding to the issues that are affecting our migrant, undocumented, and vulnerable communities out in Immokalee, and specifically our farm worker community. And when we were called into the space of what was happening out here in the Everglades, especially by the tribal youth, we felt important to come and respond. Yeah.
Thank you so much. I'm just going to scooch up a little because I don't want you to get soaked. That's great. And, for people who are just learning about this and know that there is an ICE detention center, it's clear that setting this up in the Everglades is, a risk to the environment. What else is it a risk to? There are so many other, intersectional parts of this. It's not just an issue of the environment. So could you speak to that a little bit for, again, people who aren't aware that this is a very intersectional issue?
I can let Dakota go.
Okay.
I'm grateful you brought up the intersectionality, because that has been something that has been missing, and that is why we are here, because we realize that this is not just an environmental issue. That is a very big part of it, but this is these are humans. There's human trafficking. There's kidnappings happening. There are people being torn from their families. There are young mothers who will not be able to raise their children. And there's people who will never be able to become an elder. And these are indigenous people with medicine, with culture, with love, with communities. And they don't deserve to be ignored. There needs to be some sort of respect towards the tribes that are putting tax dollars into the Florida economy. Unfortunately, we send those people lots of money, and what are they doing to us? How dare they? How dare they? This is not their land. This is our land. This is native land. This is Seminole, Miccosukee, and indigenous people who are working, who are living, who are living our lives here.
Support this critically important on-the-ground reporting as a Status Coup member and get great perks. Become a member right here.
One of the major things, especially in terms of impact, is, we know that the carceral system here, especially the for-profit prison system, is one of the major polluters. You can look that stuff up under the EPA, although probably right now you can't really find a lot of that info. But there have been even academic writers that have talked about the intersectionality of environmental justice and who actually benefits from harm, or who doesn't benefit, right? Who is actually harmed when there's development, when there's detainment centers. And there actually has been a lot of studies. We saw that recently. George Takei, who's like an actor, he was describing, sort of responding to the Alligator Alcatraz, and he said, Japanese Americans were rounded up in the 1930s, and we were sent to Arkansas to also a swampland, and he remembers that from being young, and he goes, the goal is terror. The goal is for us to suffer the most.
snakes are fast, but alligators are, but we're going to teach them how to run away from an alligator, okay? If they escape prison. How to run away. Don't run in a straight line. Run like this. And you know what? Your chances go up about 1%. Okay? Not a good thing.
You know, again, major polluters. There's lack of infrastructure. A lot of times there's not a lot of money put into these prison systems because it's about the bottom dollar. And so who's going to suffer the consequences? They're going to lacking medical needs are going to be lacking. A lot of that safety and it's a public health issue too. So that's a huge impact.
Absolutely, and I mean on that, from what I understand, all of the let's say wastewater, human waste, is going to be carried out into the Everglades as well. Which, you know, if we're talking about public safety, that's a public safety issue, and a good majority, if I'm remembering correctly from when I lived here, a good majority of fresh water in Florida comes from the Everglades. So I mean that is a massive issue. So there's issues of public safety in that sense, and then there's also just the sheer fact that we're in the middle of the Everglades. This is a swamp. It is a mangrove ecosystem. There's mosquitoes. There's tons of mosquitoes. You can get very sick. I have gotten very sick from being, repeatedly bitten by mosquitoes. That is a major issue. I'm going to imagine that, like you said, they're not going to be following any kind of OSHA standards. So the idea that people are going to be having air conditioning is I think that's probably not what's going to happen. And I mean, we're in the Everglades. The heat index is 100 plus here. So you're going to have issues of people being dehydrated, fainting, having heat stroke.
We're already seeing that in the Chrome detention centers. People all over that have come to this protest have all been sharing because there's this isn't just one person show or one person speaking. This is a lot of people coming with a lot of knowledge and perspectives. And people have already shared that, in the news, we've already had another 2 deaths, in these detention centers, and in terms of not be, what it does in terms of pollution is there hasn't been transparency when it's a for-profit industry, and they're building this detention center industry to make somebody rich, right? And if you follow the money, which some organizations and some folks that have been doing that work to follow who is benefiting financially and economically from this, it is not the locals. It is not, or at least it's not the local economy, the working class economy. Yeah,
absolutely, and I mean it's the same. Close to New York City, where we've been covering the Delaney Hall in Newark. That area is a huge sacrifice zone. So we've seen that already. Again in Newark, it appears to be the same here. I mean, is there anything else that you would want to add on this, this being an issue of environmental justice as well as a human rights violation? All of this.
Our people still eat the fish that are swimming in the water. Our people still eat the deer that are running through what's left. Our people still hunt here. They still fish here. We're raising our kids here, and it's gonna affect. It's
no development.
Yeah.
No more development.
No, we need to end that. That needs to stop. And the people who are affected are and the land, it goes hand in hand. There's no separation of the issues.
Yeah, and I think that's, an important thing to underscore, again, for people who are not familiar with this or not even familiar with the area in general. This isn't just an issue of environmental stuff. These are tribal lands. And, they are just being snatched up to create a detention center where people are going to be jailed, essentially. I mean, that's what's happening, and we'll be facing conditions that I cannot possibly imagine.
And there's a lot of conversation. There's a lot of really smart people that can that can speak truth to the history of creating this as a preserve, of enacting, environmental protections throughout history, things that are supposed to keep wild spaces wild and stewarded by people that actually live on this land. This is an affront to all of that history and to all of the work that's been put in, the cross-sectional and intersectional work that's been put in to protect it.
Yeah, I mean, when I lived here, I was involved with like environmental organizations. I worked for an ocean cleanup company that partnered with organizations like Friends of the Everglades that has put in a lot of work. Captains for Clean Water, they're another organization that's done that work. There has been so much money poured into preserving the Everglades, and this just kind of undoes the whole thing.
Yeah, where is that money now? Like, what are they doing with it? Why are they taking money? First of all, I mean, not Friends of the Everglades, but why are there organizations that are taking money and they're not doing shit with it? That's a question.
Yeah, I think overall, when we feel like disturbed by the fact that a lot of very, very strong and influential organizations that are say to be fighting for the environment, but are elbow to elbow, rubbing elbows with folks that are part of this, that did this. And it's just weird to me that we're gonna placate or pander to the state and to the state violence that we're witnessing here. I think, it's the Republican, it's a losing fight if you bring up anything else, if you bring up issues that are polarizing. I think I'd rather keep my dignity and stand on the right side of history and not pander to politics. And that's really what I think you're going to get a sentiment out here is that, we're done playing those games and being pawns. The alligator will not be a pawn, and neither will migrants.
Thank you both so much. Is there anything else that you would want people to know about what's going on here? Anything at all about like the history of the Everglades and the history of people trying to build things in the Everglades that shouldn't be here? Anything else that you guys would want viewers to know?
There's a lot of organizations that will talk to you about all of the history that we're very connected to the work of Marjorie Stoneman Douglas. I think what we want to have here is the conversation. What we are best speaking to is the intersectionality of environmental justice and immigrant justice and the inhumane conditions that the administration is adamant about centering.